Hi, everyone. Welcome to 5 Day Snacks, your go-to podcast for insights on thriving in dynamic and fast-growing teams. Here, we aim to reflect, pause, and rethink our daily grind for a better, more human future. I'm your host, Mansi, and today we're joined by a very special guest, Ridhi Singh. Ridhi is a seasoned marketer turned entrepreneur with 14 years of experience working with the business across US, UK, SEA, and India. She is the founder of 91Ninjas, a B2B SaaS focused marketing firm that has been the growth partner for more than 60 global B2B companies, including the lives of DevRev, Flipkart Commerce Cloud, EdgeVerve, and many more. Let's give a warm welcome to Ridhi, the founder of 91Ninjas. Ridhi, thank you so much for being here and welcome to 5 Day Snacks podcast.
Thanks, Mansi. All excited to be here, and I look forward to the conversation today.
Absolutely. All right. Before we get into our conversation, I would like to set expectations for our listeners. So, today we will deep dive into the world of storytelling, creativity, and the marketing elements that drive the traction, engagement, and growth in a business. We'll sort of be exploring Riddhi's amazing journey and her expertise in B2B SaaS marketing, and I'm excited to learn everything I can. So Riddhi, looking back at your career, because 14 years, that's really impressive, extensive career. So looking back at your career, the very first question that comes into my mind is that what's the biggest misconception about marketing that you had to unlearn since when you started up until this point? And how has sort of that definition of what marketing is called has evolved?
Yeah, good question, right? So I would say there are so many misconceptions about marketing that you keep learning at different stages of business whenever you're working on multiple things and all. But I think one thing which I even struggle today to explain to businesses and when I'm working with people and many new folks also is marketing is not about channels, right? So like that's the core thought that I would want to put out there for most of the new marketers, for businesses, leaders, whoever. So it's basically a science, a concept that's far beyond the channel. So that's one misconception around talking about performance marketing, search engine optimization marketing, email marketing. So rather than these are just channels to deliver your message to your target audience. So I would just say not a misconception per se, but the way we look at marketing, most of the people look at marketing is very, very channel specific. So breaking that mold and looking at it from a perspective of actual marketing, where you're thinking about your target personas, what is the pitch that you have for the target persona, and what are the channels that you're reaching out to. So it took me some time during my initial years to actually come to this and then say, hey, it's a mix of who are you reaching out to, what are you selling to that person, what is the best pitch that you have, and what are the channels that you're reaching out to.
Right.
So I think that's one thing. There are many, but I think that's the core of marketing that forms the basic of marketing that everyone needs to understand
Right.
before even think about marketing. Yeah.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. Very interesting that you mentioned that. So, do you think it like still holds relevancy up until this point? Like the evolution of it, how it happened? Do you think that's still like very much relevant, that that's how people approach it?
See, I think the basics of marketing remain the same. And the basic
Right.
of marketing is these three elements only. Who are you speaking to? What are you selling them? And how are you reaching out to?
Right.
That hasn't changed. That's not going to change like as far as I think, right?
Right.
But the perception of marketing is where the problem is. And when it comes to perception, I think, yes, I every day I bump into many people actually talking about, hey, how about I should do search engine optimization? I should do PPC. I should do ABM. Like ABM is not for everyone, but I've seen like people selling to SMBs or even PLG motion talking about it doesn't
Right.
make any sense, right? So
Right.
understanding. So when you're thinking about marketing, don't just think about channel, think about who you want to communicate. I think that's one big piece.
Yeah.
Another thing that I feel or which is like very, very prominent in the tech space because we work with B2B SaaS businesses is selling my features all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think that's a problem that we also face quite a lot. Like especially being a writer, right? It is always so important to dig deeper. Otherwise, you just sorry for my language, but you sound like a narcissistic prick, right? Like you're just all the time just talking about, oh, we have these features, we have these features, but they're not benefit driven. And then the sort of point ceases to exist about why we made them in the first place.
Yes. So I think that and there are many such, like just talking about, and I'm just talking about technology businesses because this is where communication is largely a problem.
Yeah.
And you will see because people are fairly passionate about the product that they have built. Yes,
Yeah.
amazing product, great, but what pain point, what problem is it solving? So
Right.
that's another where I see that despite where we are in, marketing has evolved significantly. Even the face of B2B marketing that we knew about a couple of years ago is not
Right.
the same.
Right.
Given the advancement of AI, given that it's turning more from B2B to B2C sort of
Right.
approach, we are talking way more around ROI driven, right communication, figuring out how each channel needs to be measured, what kinds of growth funnels are going to work for us and all, right? So at that time, even the basics, when I see like talking about, like this is just one example, right? You're talking about features all the time. No, we are talking to target audience. It has to be interesting to them. It has to solve their problem. It has to be useful to them. So how do
Right.
we start from keeping the target audience and really empathize with them to create our marketing? Marketing is not like on the face selling all the time. I don't care what I'm selling to you, but I'm yet going to sell it, right?
Right.
That's not how
Right.
things work.
Yeah.
Think of it as if you have bought anything in your life, right? Have you bought it because somebody forced you to buy it, or have you bought it because you could see the value, right? Because
Right.
you could see that the other person is empathizing with me. The same is true for brands. Why does it need
Right.
to change, right? So if a brand is empathizing with me, they're actually helping me solve a problem that I'm facing, then I'm willing to buy, right?
Right.
But if you just, hey, we have got this feature, we have got this feature, we
Yeah.
are the best in this class, number one, best, just
Yeah.
buy it. That's not how it works.
That no longer
Uh,
works. Yeah.
really need to work. And while it sounds very, very commonsensical, I have seen this to be a thing
Right.
with most businesses.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense actually. I think the next question that I would sort of like to, jump off of this is that can you sort of share a tangible or tactical example with us where you thought that a marketing initiative would sort of work and it did work or did not work in a way that you did not plan? Like, so it did not go as you planned, right? What did you sort of take away from that experience and how did it sort of change your approach towards marketing in general?
Yeah, for this, actually, I don't have something on top of my mind because um, there might be many. I'll actually need to like think about it. I haven't thought.
We can always circle back if you want. Yeah,
We can
absolutely.
circle back to it. Yeah, we can
For
circle
sure.
back to it because I need to think more. There might be many examples, but I haven't collated it
For sure, for
yet.
sure, for sure. I think sort of a adjacent question that maybe we can explore is that what do you think is one very outdated piece of marketing? Like, I go through LinkedIn and I see a lot of people sharing their stories like, oh, but this no longer works. Like they put on hooks or they are like, this is the best thing that could work now. But what do you think is sort of like a very outdated marketing advice that you still hear around a lot? And why doesn't it work? And what should the businesses be doing instead?
Yeah, there's no one, like again, like come to this, like in marketing, there is no one thing that's never going to work, right? Those are
Right.
tactics, not a
Right.
marketing strategy, not a marketing channel. See, it's as simple as that when we are looking at marketing, there are certain channels. Whenever there is a new channel, that will work because competition is less, right?
Right.
The moment more people come to it, that channel is not going to work anymore. So I think from a channel specific point, this won't be. And they're usually tactics that might or might not work.
Right.
So again, like coming back to marketing advice that I've heard that wouldn't work. There are many, like, how do I answer that question, right? Again,
Right.
coming back to
Right.
the question, like, there's so many, for example, people will say, okay, we really need to talk about a product, like the same communication, right? People might come back and then say, hey, SEO works for everyone, right? Or you must invest in organic marketing. People sometimes come and say, hey, you must invest in brand. Sometimes people come and then say, hey, you must invest in ABM, right? So there's so many marketing advice that are flawed. And marketing is a fairly complex subject. What applies to one business might not work for you at all.
Yeah.
Right. So again, like coming back to this, if somebody is telling me, hey, search engine optimization must be done, you must invest in SEO, you must invest in organic growth. Fair enough. But I'm a new category. People are not searching for me. Google is not a channel where searches are happening, right?
Yeah.
So even
Yeah.
though I'm optimizing for the keyword that I want
Yeah.
to appear for. I'm not going to get business out of it. Does it make sense, right?
Right.
So there's so many marketing advice that are flawed
Yeah.
because one marketing principle cannot be applied to everything. There's certain thumb of rules, obviously. For example, let's say this example only, like when we're talking about search engine optimization. If you're an existing category, and you have competitors who have been in this space for quite some time, then you'll find there are enough and more Google searches happening. Then SEO is probably a good strategy for you,
Right.
right? And when you're targeting SMBs, obviously, because
Right.
enterprises might not land just by looking or searching, right? That's a very different buying process.
Right.
Google search will work for you because people are searching for it. But if you're a new category,
Yeah.
nobody knows about it. A lot of education is required. So marketing approach is going to change completely.
Right.
You investing more into brand, you will be investing into really creating that education, becoming a thought leader. While somebody who is there in a crowded space doesn't need to create any sort of, even if they want to, they might not be able to create thought leadership in that space
Right.
because a leader will already be there, right?
Yeah.
So they have a certain proven channel that they will need to figure out efficient way to crack.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
So
that was like,
yeah, I think
what
it sort of
advice?
boils. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it sort of boils down to there is no wrong tactic, but there is a wrong time and a wrong place to do it. Right? So like if it does not apply to your audience or if it does not apply to the space you're trying to crack, then it might not work for you.
Yes, right. So there's no science, right? As I said, so marketing,
Yeah.
like at the end of it, it needs to be broken down to the same question.
Right.
Who am I selling to? What am I selling to? And what channel do I reach out to this, right? And there's so many factors, whether you're selling to enterprises, whether you're selling to mid-market, whether you're selling to SMBs, right?
Right.
That has a lot of impact on your entire marketing strategy, even
Right.
in the growth levels that you will use, right? So there's no fixed answer to it. It is very, very contextual to your your own business. It is very, very contextual to your persona. It is very contextual to the people that we are targeting, to the geography also. There
Right.
might be certain channels that will not, like TikTok, for example. Look at Southeast Asia; it's wonderful here, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at India, it's banned. Now, if somebody says that TikTok works, now somebody who's actually selling to the Indian market or is based out of India,
Yeah.
they don't work for them. So, any marketing advice that you see, please look at the entire context and understand how it is relevant to you.
Right.
And also, like, if there is one creative campaign that you come across, so if you're thinking a Coca-Cola campaign and then you're trying to tell your B2B team to actually come up with a campaign like that, they probably can't, right? There
Absolutely.
has to be, yes, there can be viral content, there can be a very good brand content, but that needs to be customized to your
Absolutely.
um, context, right? Again,
For
so like,
sure. For sure.
yeah, so I think a lot of, so I can't answer one advice that needs to be given, but my takeaway would be that you really need to look at context.
Absolutely,
And then,
absolutely. I think I very, very much related to the last example you gave. So Zomato as a brand is doing really well, right? And as a writer, if you're being approached by, some sort of industry that, hey, we need so and so copy for so and so campaign, or we need so and so content for so and so campaign, their go-to reference always, be it a B2B SaaS company or a shoe brand, it would be right like Zomato. And it always just goes back to, but that does not apply here. Like, there is no sort of quote unquote virality on the same level as what Zomato does, right? So I think that is something which is very difficult to explain to a lot of leaders who are not in the marketing space.
yeah, I think so. So I think again, like that comes to context. For example, so I do agree that ultimately you're selling to people, right? So B2B doesn't need to be boring. So you
Yeah,
don't have to be like
absolutely.
all formal, traditional, boring. Nobody reads that kind of content. We
Yeah,
don't read it. I know many leader friends who don't read it, right?
yeah,
So it needs to be conversational, simple, appealing, right? And how do you do that? You do that by understanding your persona properly.
yeah,
You might want to be witty, but you might not want to be childish,
yeah,
right? So there are certain things that your brand will decide whether you'd want to do it or not want to do it.
yeah,
So that needs to be aligned to your brand. Yes, it needs to be conversational, but really, really contextual to what you stand for, what the brand stands for.
right. Absolutely, absolutely. I think I'm going to take this conversation since you mentioned AI slightly in that direction. That, with the very rapid advances in AI now, since at least the past 3 to 4 years, I would say, how should marketers sort of rethink their strategy to create a personalized experience for their customers? Because I think we are at a point in time where strictly saying no to AI should not be an option if you want to win, right? So, what suggestions do you have for marketers here?
Yeah, so my take would be you adopt AI, embrace AI as much as you can. It is
Right,
there, right? So defying it, saying we won't use it, if you're not making it a part of your workflow, if you're not looking at it and learning and upskilling, you're actually going to miss out on. It
right,
is here to stay and it is here to make us more efficient, right? So
right.
why not?
Absolutely.
Like 100% on that you must integrate. If you're not integrated, then you are missing out because the world of marketing is going to change. AI is going to change multiple aspects of marketing, right? You look at like search engine optimization, the way the kind of searches, the kind of results that are coming in, AI has really, really changed it with AI overview launched by Google, right?
Right,
You really need to, and like if you ask me, my prediction would be that Google's search engine algorithm is going to change completely. The way
right,
users will search, that search behavior is going to change completely, which means that brands really need to diversify and also look at what kind of changes are happening. Now, if AI is changing uh, one of the biggest marketing channels, something like a Google, a search engine, right, that has
yeah,
dominated search for quite some time.
yeah,
If we are seeing changes at that level, it means that you really need to be at the forefront of understanding what's happening in the industry, how they are changing. As a marketer, there are four areas that you should be looking at when it comes to AI. First is workflows. Anything that you're working on can be way more efficient if you're integrating an AI, right? Example, if you are, say, let's take SEO example, or maybe we'll take a writer's example as well. If you're a search engine optimization specialist and
right,
you know that I need to add FAQs, etc., to my website, rather than doing everything manually, etc., there are ways that you can contextualize those FAQs. There are ways that you can integrate your product. There are ways that you can pull out that entire data and automate the complete workflow. If
right.
you're a social media marketer, you know from wireframe to calendar creation, from brainstorming to coming up with creative ideas, everything can be, it has to be like it can be,
Absolutely.
yes, but it
Yeah,
has to be a part, like AI has to be a part of your workflow. So I would say workflow, whatever you're working, whether you're PPC, whether you're content, whether you are SEO person, whether you're doing ABM campaigns also, there's a lot that you can understand. You can become way more efficient because there's a lot of operational work that marketers do.
yeah,
That operational work can be automated and can be made better with the use of AI. I'm not saying that like can be automated with AI. Automation was already there, but AI can enrich that automation, can make that better, and
absolutely.
can have some more context to it, right?
Right,
Second, I would say enrichment part of things. So if you are on the demand capture side of things, if you are doing a lot of data analysis, acquisition, SQL, pipeline generation, and all, you must look at AI as a way to enrich the profiles of your customers or prospects, right?
right,
Should know, like as a business, and like that's one of the biggest changes that I've seen in marketing. And now that I'm saying, I understand, like from the last time we discussed, we talked about what are the biggest shifts, etc., we are taking. Actually, this is one big change.
right,
uh, Businesses expect people to people expect businesses to know who we are and what our problem is, right?
right,
So there are many intent signals that you get. So
right,
far, the kind of intent signals we'll get is probably somebody visiting the website, somebody looking at our page in G2, which we call intent signals that are coming in. But
right,
there's a lot of data, there's a lot of enrichment that needs to happen to these profiles for businesses to know their target audience better.
right,
For example, think of it as if so LinkedIn data scraping, you would have seen many people do it, right? You would
yeah,
have seen many people or many ABM tools actually enriching your data, pulling out information from LinkedIn.
yeah,
In LinkedIn, IT and software is a category which is so broad. Every other company is a part of IT and software. Even if I might be a manufacturing company, I might be a pharma company, I might be an HR tech company, but I'm going to fall into the same category.
Right.
Most of the tools are going to fetch that information from LinkedIn and enrich my data. Now,
Hmm.
a simple use case as it is, what I do is I just integrate AI here and I ask AI to run a simple query that go read their about section on LinkedIn or go to the first party data, look at their website, and figure out the description on their About Us page and
Yeah.
tell me which industry it
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
update that data into my, update that information in my database, right?
Yeah.
That's a very small thing, but I can now have more contextual information about this. I can
Right.
pull out data. Somebody has changed job. I can pull out data if there is any new news or advancement, etc., that has happened in the industry. So there's a lot of enrichment context that can be added using AI. That's a very, very powerful space and is a must have for businesses to invest in, right? So workflows, enrichment, and I think the third one would be obviously communication,
Yeah.
right? So which is where you personalize. So when you're reaching out to, as I said, like buyers of today are fairly smart. They are well researched. They have a lot of context, and they've done their own research. They understand the space. They don't want to be sold to,
Yeah.
which makes marketing even more difficult as compared to how it used to be.
Yeah.
Now, those people would want you to reach out with a very clear communication, which is contextualized to them. And how
Right.
can you contextualize? Only if you have enriched data, you have more context on your buyers, and AI would obviously like enable you with that information
Right.
and will also enable that you're able to dynamically generate that sort of personalized content and reach outs to these people. So I think
Right.
three areas, depending on which part of marketing you're working on, but marketers must look at these three areas and figure out how they can upskill.
That is incredibly insightful, Riddhi. And I think I definitely agree with you in that aspect that with the advancement of AI, I think we've sort of have a golden opportunity to increase our sort of efficiency with a level that we've never imagined before, right? We can do things so quickly and so accurately that has never been possible in the past. So I definitely agree with you. And there's something very interesting you said, which was sort of related to what I wanted to explore with you today. You talked about the B2B sort of like buying process, right? Where people are fairly educated these days. So I just wanted to, explore that given the current sort of trends of hyper personalization, what are some significant changes that you have observed in the B2B buying process?
Yes, I would say like the biggest change is that people expect a lot more context.
Right.
The same pitch that your sales team is reaching out to, the bulk mass emails,
Yeah.
same sales pitch, that same social media post, that same ad is not going to work for these buyers.
Right.
You really need to have the context. So I think in personalization, like it's fairly like the same thing. You have to have context, and then your pitch has to be relevant to that context.
Right.
Both these things can be done across all the channels.
Right.
Uh, right. So I think buyers, like the biggest change that I see is buyers really want, they don't have time for long messages, those stale 5 or 10 emails that are coming and then asking me again, hey, are you interested? I can give you XYZ.
Yeah.
I really understand where I am in my buying journey, and that context is something that I expect businesses to have.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's like I think that's a very, very different approach as compared to earlier. Like so far, we didn't have that context. We're
Right.
sharing things, it was very, very, very traditional, formal way of reaching out, and things would happen. It won't
Yeah.
happen anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, again, like marketing becomes all the more difficult if you're
Yeah.
not doing it with.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. I think this was incredibly insightful. I think in terms of, for all our young marketers to sort of go through this conversation with you, slightly straying away from that topic because I think it's time for us to sort of rethink the approach of our life. This is a question that I love to ask all our founders, especially who are here. When we think about it, being a founder is sometimes incredibly hard, right? There's like a lot of blurred lines between personal life and professional lives, and sometimes you're working days on end, like we talk today morning, right? Back to back meetings and things like that. So balancing work and life is sort of a challenge that many founders have talked about, and I've come across talking to them. How do you think founders should essentially manage that, or how do you personally manage that?
Yeah, good question, right? You're absolutely right. It's when you're building something, building a company is very intense,
Yeah,
right? It is.
yeah,
It's the hard truth. But I don't know how founders should manage it, but I'm happy to share what has worked for me and how I manage it.
absolutely.
Um, yes, I would say first thing is that you really need to have a strong team and delegate. Build an organization so robust that you're not needed there.
Right,
That's the first thing that you need to do. And like initially you can't. So initial year or years might be really, really tough. There are different challenges at different businesses, etc. But the first thing that helped me was to get the right team together. We've got really powerful leaders, strong team members who can manage things end to end, right? So I would say team, getting the right team in place and training them and enabling them to
right.
do wonders without you. Second thing I would say is building the right culture in the company, right? So even if you get a really good talent, if you don't have the right culture, they won't stick around. So you
Absolutely.
really need to have that to ensure that delegation, culture, people problem, etc. Uh, Delegation is happening properly, culture is taken care of, and people problems are not like an issue. You cannot be fighting multiple wars when you are going to the market, fighting competitors, and then looking at your team and then okay, oh my God, you can't be a hiring
Correct.
machine, right? And
Yeah,
that's one of the problems that really founders face. I think once these two things are sorted, then you really need to set boundaries in terms of how do I ensure that work is different from my other life also. You have something out of work also. Having said that, this is where like I have struggled a lot, especially during the initial years, because there's just so much to be done for a startup to survive that you
yeah,
just can't let it go. But I
yeah,
think as time passes, the moment you have the right team and you have a mini organization built in that can take care of things,
yeah.
now you can look at it. So few things that I do is I go for walks, I exercise, I spend time, I sleep on time. Sleep is
Right,
very, very important. There have been times when I didn't do it properly, but I've realized and I am off by 10 p.m. no matter
right,
what.
right.
Um, Sleep, exercise, and really logging off and doing things that you would like. So there's certain rule of thumbs that I follow. For example, like Sundays, you wouldn't see any of my team members messaging me or me messaging any of my team members, or I wouldn't even respond to other people unless it's a real emergency. You wouldn't see
Right.
me having my phone nearby. Those are small, small changes, but like very significant uh, impact on the mental health. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is fantastic advice, Rithi. And I definitely agree. Sleep is one of the, you know, I don't want to say rare, but sadly in a startup culture, it almost always feels like rare to a lot of people. It feels like rarity, which is unfortunate, but I see the gradual change. So let's be hopeful.
Yeah.
But yeah, fantastic advice. Thank you so much for sharing your story and insights with our listeners today. Like, I really appreciate it, and I had an incredible time talking to you.
Same here, Mansi. My pleasure.
Yeah. So before we let you go, actually, where can our listeners learn more about 91 Ninjas and connect with you if they want to?
Then you can just Google 91ninjas.com. You'll find our website. You can drop a contact us message and the team will reach out. Or you can just find me on LinkedIn and hit me up.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on the 5 Day Snacks podcast. Until next time, remember to reflect, pause, and rethink.